The silence of someone who once chased you speaks louder than the words of someone who never cared. They don't fall apart when you walk away, my friends. They fall apart when your attention, your sacred energy, quietly disappears. When they feel that shift and realize they're no longer the center of your world, it doesn't just bruise their ego, it shakes their entire sense of emotional control. And today, we're about to break the illusion wide open. Because the truth is, most people don't crumble when you leave. They crumble when they can no longer feel you watching, hoping, or waiting. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a blazing fire in the middle of a freezing forest. For the longest time, they stood close to you, not because they brought warmth of their own, but because you were the source. You were the comfort, the safety, the light. But now you've pulled your fire inward. You've placed it in a place where not just anyone can reach it anymore. And suddenly, they feel the cold. See, most people think when you stop texting, stop calling, stop caring, it doesn't matter. They'll just move on. That's the lie we've been sold. But let's rip that lie to shreds right now, because attention isn't free, my friends. Your presence is not cheap, and when someone loses access to it, even if they pretend not to care, even if they laugh louder or post more selfies or act like they've leveled up without you, deep down, the silence hits them like a thunderclap. They're not just missing your message, they're missing the mirror you once held up that said they mattered. People react in strange ways when they realize your focus isn't on them anymore. Some try to win it back without saying a word. Some get angry. Some pretend they never needed it. And some just sit in quiet panic, hoping you'll reach out again. But make no mistake, they notice, they feel it, even the proudest ones. There's a quote I love that says, "They never notice the light until the room goes dark." And that's exactly what happens. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to shout. You just need to reclaim your attention and watch how they shift. Watch how silence becomes the loudest message you've ever sent. Now listen closely. This isn't about bitterness. This isn't about playing games. This is about clarity. This is about self-respect. You're not here to chase crumbs when you've got the whole damn bakery inside you. You're here to rise, to evolve, to build. And the moment you stop centering them in your universe is the moment you finally return to the throne of your own life. So don't get confused by their sudden coldness or fake indifference. Don't get pulled back in by half-effort breadcrumbs. If they really valued you, they wouldn't have waited until you disappeared to feel your worth. Stay focused. Stay grounded. Let them feel the silence they once mistook for weakness. Write this in the comments right now. I protect my energy. Say it loud. Say it proud. Show the world you're not begging for space in anyone else's life. You are the space. And if this hit home, press that like button, subscribe for more truth like this, and most importantly, stay with me, because what's coming next will break every illusion they tried to hide behind. Number 1. They panic. Quietly. They won't cry when you walk away. They'll cry when they realize you're not looking back. See, when you stop giving someone your attention, it doesn't always cause an explosion. Sometimes it causes a quiet panic. Not the kind you see in dramatic goodbye scenes, not the type with screaming or closure. No, my friends, this panic is silent. It's invisible on the outside, but it shakes them up on the inside like an earthquake no one else can hear. Imagine this, someone's been used to being the center of your orbit. They were the sun, and you revolved around them. Your messages, your presence, your compliments, your attention. It was like a warm breeze that always showed up when they needed it. But now something's changed. You're still standing, still living, but your focus, it's no longer aimed at them. And the moment they feel that absence, the internal panic starts. Quiet, subtle, real. They might ask themselves, why did they stop checking in? What changed? Did I lose them? That fear. It's not because they love you, it's because your attention was their mirror, and when that mirror vanishes, they're left looking at a reflection they're no longer sure they like. That's the part most people won't tell you. The truth is, they were leaning on your attention to keep their own self-worth steady. It's like this. You ever been on a stage with the lights on, the crowd cheering? Feels amazing, right? But what happens when the lights cut off, the curtains close, and you're left standing there in the dark? That's what your silence feels like to them now. You were the spotlight, and now that it's gone, the silence is screaming in their head. And yet most people watching from the outside will never know, because this panic isn't loud. It doesn't post sad poems or type long confessions. It hides behind pride. It hides behind smiles. It hides behind overcompensation. Suddenly, they're more active on social media, out with friends, posting stories, looking unbothered. But let me tell you something real. They're not showing the world how happy they are. They're showing you that they're fine without you, hoping you'll flinch. That's not strength. That's fear in a fancy outfit. Here's where it gets tricky, though, because when you were the one giving, chasing, showing up, they felt safe. Not because they were committed, but because they had control. They knew exactly where your emotions were, and that gave them comfort. But now, they're unsure, and people hate uncertainty more than they hate pain. Your detachment has removed the emotional GPS they were using to navigate your connection, and now they're lost in their own questions. You see, we've been taught a lie. The lie that they'll only react if you slam a door or send a dramatic goodbye text. But the real reaction happens after you go quiet, after you stop chasing, after you stop explaining. That's when the questions start haunting them, because they were expecting you to always be there, waiting, hoping, available. Why does it hit them so hard? Because you were their backup plan, their comfort zone. You were the emotional safety net they didn't have to earn. And now the safety net is gone, and they don't know how to stand on their own. They're not just missing you, they're missing how you made them feel about themselves. And let's be honest, this part isn't easy for you either, because deep down, you might still want to reach out. You might wonder if you're being too harsh, too cold. You might hear that silence and start to panic yourself. But here's what I want to tell you, from one warrior to another. Don't interrupt their lesson. Let the silence speak. Let them sit in the stillness they once took for granted. Because that stillness, it's where self-awareness starts. It's where their reflection gets real. And if you jump back in too soon, trying to soften the blow, you're not being strong. You're being afraid of their discomfort. And that's not your job to carry anymore. You gave your energy, you showed up, you offered connection, and when it wasn't respected, you reclaimed your fire. That's not punishment, that's power. So don't let guilt sneak in. Don't let loneliness trick you. You're not being cruel, you're being clear. Let them panic, quietly, privately. Let them question what changed. Let them wonder if they were ever truly chosen or just conveniently prioritized. Because those questions, they need to sit with them for a while. They need to see themselves without the glow of your attention lighting them up. And if you're struggling in this phase, if you're hearing their silence and it makes your hands itch to reach out, remember this. They didn't panic when you gave everything. They panicked when you gave nothing. That tells you everything you need to know. So breathe, walk tall, hold your frame. You are not the person who begs anymore. You are not the person who gives away his soul in exchange for crumbs of interest. You are becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to chase validation, because you know your value is not dependent on their recognition. Write this in the comments right now. I'm no longer available for confusion. Say it, own it, let them see it. Let yourself see it. You've outgrown needing to explain your silence. Now you just live it. And stay close, because what comes next, it's even deeper. We're just getting started. Number 2, they try to trigger you subtly. When they lose your attention, they don't ask for it back. They poke, they bait, they whisper, just to see if you'll flinch. They don't always come knocking with apologies or deep, heartfelt messages. Most of the time, when they realize they've lost your attention, they don't confront it directly. They start testing the waters, not to heal things, not to grow, but just to see if you'll react. It's subtle, it's strategic, and it's silent warfare dressed as friendliness. Let me paint the picture for you, my friends. Imagine a fisherman who used to reel in the biggest catch every morning with ease. But one day, the ocean goes quiet. No bite, no pull, just stillness. So what does he do? He doesn't stop fishing. He casts the line again, changes the bait, throws it into deeper waters, not because he needs to eat, but because he needs to know if the ocean still listens. That's what they're doing when they start testing you. It's the random story post at midnight, curated just enough to grab your eye. It's the accidental message that was meant for someone else. It's the comment on something old, the follow, the unfollow, the follow again. It's all a quiet whisper that says, "Hey, are you still watching me?" And you've got to be sharp enough to hear what they're really saying behind the performance. They're not reaching out to reconnect. They're reaching out to check if they still exist in your world. And most men fall for it. They think, they messaged me again, they must care. But no, my friend, that's not care. That's control. That's them needing to know that they still have power over your emotions. Even if they don't want you, they still want access to your energy. And that's a dangerous game to play if you're not grounded. So why do they do this instead of being upfront? Because being upfront would mean being vulnerable. It would mean admitting they miss your attention. And for a lot of people, especially those who've been used to having your energy without effort, vulnerability feels like weakness. They don't want to seem like they've lost. So instead, they test. They bait the hook. They want to see if you're still available, still affected, still paying attention. You ever seen someone throw a rock into a still pond? They don't do it to disturb the peace. They do it to see if there's still movement beneath the surface. That's what these triggers are. Digital rocks thrown into your calm, a breadcrumb here, a subtle poke there, all just to see if you'll chase like before. And here's where it gets really interesting. Many of them won't even realize they're doing it. That's how deep the programming runs. When your attention has been a constant source of comfort, validation, or ego boosting, the moment it disappears, the subconscious starts scrambling to get it back without looking desperate. So they do things that look casual, things they can deny if you don't respond. "Oh, that wasn't for you. Oh, I was just being friendly." But if you do respond, if you do engage, boom, they've got confirmation. The hook landed. You're still watching. You're still available. And just like that, the balance of power snaps right back to where it was. You're the one reacting. You're the one questioning. You're the one wondering, what did this mean? And they've already walked away feeling validated, never having to risk a single piece of emotional truth. But not this time, my friends. Not you. Because now you see the game. Now you understand the difference between genuine connection and ego surveillance. It's not your job to respond to breadcrumbs. It's not your duty to chase vague signals. If they wanted your attention with integrity, they'd come with clarity, with effort, with truth. Anything less is manipulation wrapped in fake casualness. You need to realize something powerful here. Just because someone tries to trigger you doesn't mean you have to respond. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do is not respond at all. Let the breadcrumb fall. Let the poke get no reaction. Let the test go unanswered. Because that silence, it speaks volumes. It tells them you've outgrown the phase where you need their approval to feel seen. It tells them your peace is not up for auction. And more than anything, it tells them the version of you who would have dropped everything for a simple "hey" is gone. Let them wonder. Let them replay that post they made. Let them check if you viewed the story. Let them feel the emptiness of the trap they set and realize it no longer works. And I know it's tempting. I know a part of you still wants to engage, still wants to clarify, still wants to be nice. But ask yourself, where did that ever get you? How many times did you answer a breadcrumb, hoping for connection, only to feel emptier than before? That wasn't connection. That was you feeding their ego with your hope. No more. You've reached the level where peace is your priority, not proving your worth. You've stopped handing out your energy to anyone who throws a little bait your way. You've learned that your attention is currency, and you're no longer investing in emotional games. So when they throw out the test, don't flinch, don't bite, don't let them know that you even noticed. Because your indifference now, that's the lesson. That's the moment they realize the game is over. Write this in the comments. I don't chase breadcrumbs. Let that be your line in the sand. Let them see it. Let you see it. You don't respond to echoes of who they were. You respond only to truth, clarity, and effort. Because what's coming next in their reaction? It's even louder, even deeper. And if you think they're done just because you didn't reply, trust me, they're just getting started. Stay with me. Number 3. They pretend nothing changed. The most dangerous lie they tell isn't to you. It's to themselves. I don't care that you're gone. Here's where it starts to feel confusing. You've pulled back. You've stopped texting first. You're not showing up like you used to. You're not checking their story, not sending those late-night "you up" texts, not reacting to their little updates. Your energy is quiet now, focused, detached, and you expect some kind of reaction, a question, a call, a sign that they feel the difference. But instead, nothing. No message, no "hey, what's going on?" No emotional shift, just silence. They post like normal, laugh like normal, maybe even laugh louder. They act as if your absence is irrelevant, as if you were never really that important to begin with, and you start to wonder, was I really that forgettable? Did I matter at all? Pause right there, my friend, because what you're witnessing isn't strength, it isn't detachment, it's pride disguised as peace, it's denial dressed up as control. They're pretending nothing changed, not because nothing changed, but because everything did. See, this is the defense mechanism that kicks in when reality becomes too uncomfortable to face. If they acknowledge your absence, they have to acknowledge your value. If they admit it feels different without your energy around, they have to admit that maybe they needed it more than they showed. And for people who built their confidence on always being chased, always being validated, always being the one in control, admitting that they've been affected is terrifying. So instead, they pretend. They lean hard into "I'm good." They throw on the "nothing phases me" face. They might post more, joke more, flirt more, not to show that they're happy, but to show you that they're unbothered. That's the lie. That's the mask. But here's the secret they don't want you to see. It takes more energy to pretend you're okay than to admit you're not. Think of it like a sinking ship with fresh paint. From the outside, it looks untouched, glossy, perfect. But below deck, the water's rushing in, fast. Every new post, every fake laugh, every calculated move is an attempt to cover the rising panic inside. Panic that the version of you who used to orbit them like the sun has now become the moon, distant, cold, and unreachable. You need to understand something. Pretending not to care is a reaction. It's not apathy. It's a choice. It's a signal. They notice the shift. They felt the silence, but they've chosen to play the only card they feel still gives them control, the "I don't need you" card, even if it's a bluff, especially if it's a bluff. And here's the thing, many of them are playing it well. They're convincing, not just to you, but to themselves. That's the part you don't see. They're trying to sell the lie, not just outwardly, but internally too. I didn't need them anyway. Their attention didn't mean anything. I was never really that into it. These thoughts aren't truths. They're armor. Armor to protect the part of them that just got hit with a silent blow they weren't ready for. They didn't expect you to detach. They thought you'd always care. They counted on it. And now that your attention is gone, they're scrambling to protect their image of control. That's why they're acting like nothing changed. Because to admit something did would be to admit they lost something they weren't ready to lose. But here's where you must be strong. Don't fall for the performance. Don't break your silence because they're acting like they're unfazed. That's exactly what the performance is meant to do, to pull you back in, to make you question your own progress. They want you second-guessing. They want you thinking maybe they really don't care, because if you start doubting your impact, they regain the emotional upper hand. Don't give it to them. Silence isn't weakness. It's the language of self-respect. It says, I don't need to explain my worth anymore. It says, I'm not here to beg you to notice the shift. You already feel it. It says, I don't react to illusions. I respond to truth. Let them keep pretending. Let them keep painting that perfect picture while the reality of your absence eats away at their certainty. Because here's what they'll never admit. The absence of your attention has become the loudest presence in their life, and eventually, it starts to crack. The act becomes exhausting. The laughter starts sounding hollow, even to them. The social posts stop hitting the same. And one day, in the quiet moments, alone in their room, no filters, no followers, they'll sit with the truth they've been running from. They lost something real. And they didn't even know it until it was gone. And by then, it's not even about wanting you back. It's about facing themselves. That's the part that hits the hardest. So don't respond to the illusion. Don't chase the ghost of who they're pretending to be. Stay centered. Stay still. Keep evolving. Because your growth isn't for them to witness. It's for you to live. And the more you rise, the more they'll have to confront what they tried to ignore. Your energy was never free. Your presence was never common. And your silence? It's not the absence of love. It's the presence of power. Write this in the comments right now. My silence speaks volumes. Let them feel it. Let yourself feel it. Because the truth is, the performance might be loud, but your stillness is louder. And if they're pretending nothing changed, it's only because deep down, they know everything did. And trust me, this is just the surface. What happens next? Oh, it cuts even deeper. Stay with me. Number 4, they compare themselves to whoever has your attention now. They don't always miss you. They miss the version of themselves they used to see reflected in your eyes. When someone loses your attention, they don't always panic right away. They don't always reach out or fall apart. Sometimes they go quiet. And in that silence, a different kind of storm begins. The comparison, not between you and someone else. No, between them and the new people who seem to have what they once held effortlessly, your attention. And let's be clear, this comparison doesn't always look loud. It doesn't always come with questions like, who's that girl? Or, are you seeing someone new? No, my friends, this is subtle, internal, silent. But don't mistake silence for peace. This is the part they don't tell anyone about, the part where the mirror cracks. You see, when your attention was fully on them, they were confident, not just because they believed in themselves, but because you believed in them. Your presence amplified them. It told them they were wanted, seen, chosen. Even if they didn't admit it out loud, they built their self-image partly on how you saw them. You were a mirror that made them feel valuable. And when that mirror disappears, they're left looking at a reflection they're no longer sure they recognize. That's when the comparisons creep in. Who has his attention now? What does they look like? Is they better than me? Did he upgrade? Would he still choose me? These thoughts don't always rise in the daylight. Sometimes they come in the silence of midnight, while scrolling, while lying in bed, while seeing your story pop up from the gym, or catching that new glow in your smile. That's when it hits them. They start watching, not just you, but the ones around you, the ones in your orbit now, the people who are standing in the light that once shone solely on them. And the ego hates that. The ego can't stand to be replaced, even if they walked away, even if they acted like they didn't need you. The moment they see that you're giving your energy to someone new, someone who's not begging for it, but earning it, they feel it. Deep. Not because of love, not because they suddenly realized how good they had it, but because their emotional leverage is gone. Let me give you a metaphor, folks. Imagine someone who always had a front row seat to your life. They didn't buy the ticket. They didn't fight to stay in that seat. But you gave it to them, freely, day after day. And one day, without warning, you take that seat and offer it to someone else. Someone who shows up, who claps, who values the show. Now the first one is standing in the back, trying to act like they don't miss the view. But they do. Oh, they do. And that's where the inner conflict starts. They begin sizing themselves up, wondering if they were ever enough, wondering if the person they see beside you now has something they didn't. Maybe it's the way they look. Maybe it's her ambition, her peace, her vibe. Doesn't matter. The comparison isn't really about the new person. It's about what that new person represents. Growth, evolution, progress. And the painful question that lingers in the background is this: if they've outgrown me, does that mean I stayed the same? Now, most of them won't admit this. No one wants to say, I'm jealous, or I feel like I lost something real. So instead, they act unaffected. They talk louder, laugh harder, throw out passive shade, maybe even pretend they've moved on first. But inside, they're calculating, comparing, measuring their worth against the version of you that's no longer checking for them. It's not just about being replaced, it's about the fear that the new version of you doesn't even see them the same anymore. That's the dagger, because once upon a time they were the standard. And now, they're a past chapter in a book they thought they'd keep rewriting. This hits even harder when you start leveling up, when you start dressing better, speaking differently, healing, becoming more silent, more strategic, when your glow doesn't come from trying to impress anyone, but from simply evolving into who you were always meant to be. That's when the comparison becomes unbearable. They start asking questions they'll never say out loud. Would he even want me now? Was I a placeholder? Did he just tolerate me? Is that his type now? And the painful part, it's not that you found someone else, it's that you became someone else, someone they no longer feel entitled to access, someone whose presence feels earned, not owed. But here's where you need to stay strong, my friend. Because the moment they feel that comparison kicking in, many will try to re-enter subtly. They'll test the waters, reach out, not to rebuild, but to see if they still have a foothold. Not because they miss the connection, but because they miss the version of themselves that your attention created. But don't go backward. Don't dim your light so someone else doesn't feel insecure. Don't shrink to fit a past that couldn't hold you. Your growth is not something to apologize for, it's something to protect. If they're watching you now and comparing themselves to who has your attention, let them. That comparison, That's the consequence of not appreciating what they had when they had it. And you don't owe them clarity. You don't owe them comfort. You don't owe them a seat at the table they chose to walk away from. Write this in the comments. I don't shrink, I rise. Let that be the truth that anchors you. Let them compare. Let them question. Let them feel the shift. Because what they're really feeling isn't your distance, it's your elevation. And if you think this part stings for them, wait until they realize the next truth. The man they're comparing themselves to get back isn't the same man they let go. Stay with me. Number 5. They get angry, but don't know why. It's not always heartbreak that makes them lash out. It's the loss of control dressed up as attitude. At first, it doesn't make sense. You were calm. You weren't rude. You didn't disrespect them. You just pulled your energy back. You stopped pouring into a space that no longer poured back. You stopped showing up first, stopped chasing, stopped trying to prove your worth to someone who treated your attention like background noise. You didn't lash out. You didn't ghost. You simply reclaimed your peace. And now, they're angry. Not sad, not distant, not confused. Angry, sarcastic, cold, passive-aggressive, short texts, sudden attitude. You're left thinking, wait, what did I do? That's the lie right there. You didn't do anything. You stopped doing everything. And that's what triggered them. Their anger isn't about something you said. It's about the silence between the words you no longer speak. It's about the calls you no longer make, the availability you no longer give. It's not about what you're doing now. It's about the realization that what they were used to is gone. See, when someone becomes used to your emotional labor, your attention, your compliments, your validation, they begin to see it as the norm, not a gift. And when that gift is taken away, they don't grieve the loss of you. They get mad that the faucet they never paid for suddenly stopped running. It's like this. Imagine a house that's always had running water. One day, the tap shuts off. No warning, no explanation, just silence. At first, they jiggle the handle, tap the pipes. They wait, still nothing. And then they slam the sink. Not because the water was owed, but because the water was expected. That's your attention, that's your energy, that's your presence. And now that it's missing, they're not asking why it stopped. They're demanding how dare it stop without their permission. The crazy part, most of them don't even understand their own reaction. That's why it feels so off. Their messages are colder, their tone has changed. They say things like, "Wow, you've switched up," or "You're different now." But there's no open conversation, just friction, like a spark you didn't light. Because to them, your shift wasn't just a personal choice, it was an insult, a threat. You choosing yourself, you focusing on your growth, you not reacting to their breadcrumbs. It didn't just catch them off guard, it offended their ego. Who are you to stop chasing me? Who are you to detach first? That's the unspoken rule you just broke. They expected to be the one to decide when things cooled off. They thought they controlled the distance. As long as they had the option to pull away, to respond late, to keep you on emotional standby, they felt in control. But you flipped the entire script. You didn't ask for closure. You didn't beg for understanding. You just stopped showing up. And now, they're furious. But here's what they won't say. The anger isn't really about you changing. It's about them realizing they never had the grip on you they thought they did. That's the ego crack. That's the wound. And for some people, the only way to cover that pain is through attitude. Because if they can make you look like the villain, they don't have to face the reality that it was their own behavior that caused the distance in the first place. You're not the bad guy. You're the mirror. You're the one that showed up, gave, stayed consistent, and then stopped. And when you stopped, the truth became too loud to ignore. So instead of saying, "Maybe I pushed them away," they say, "They changed." That narrative makes them feel safe, angry, but safe. This is the point where most people fold. You see their coldness and think, maybe I did something wrong. You start questioning yourself. You overthink. You feel guilt that was never yours to carry. And before you know it, you're back in the same pattern, apologizing for prioritizing yourself, reassuring someone who never reassured you, fixing peace for someone who broke connection, all just to stop them from being mad. But listen to me. Don't interrupt their tantrum. Let them be mad. Let them sulk. Let them throw their little emotional jabs. That's not your storm to calm anymore. That storm is a reaction to the silence they never thought would come. And just because they're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're wrong. They need to feel that tension. They need to sit in the discomfort of what happens when someone finally stops chasing, stops explaining, stops showing up on command. Your job isn't to soothe their ego. Your job is to stay grounded in your own, because this isn't about revenge, it's about reality. You're not detaching to punish them, you're detaching to protect your energy. And if that makes them uncomfortable, so be it. Let them feel it. Let them spin. Let them process. Because somewhere behind that anger, behind that false attitude, behind those dramatic silences, is the realization they're too proud to admit. I didn't think I'd actually lose their attention. That's the moment they start reflecting. Maybe not out loud, maybe not today, but eventually that reflection shows up in the form of regret, in the form of looking back at how easy it was to have your energy, and how hard it is now to reach you. Let their anger be their teacher. You're not their emotional outlet anymore. You're not their punching bag. You're not the one who absorbs the storm so they can feel better. That chapter is over. And you're walking in peace now. In purpose, in power. You're not chasing emotional clarity from people who get angry when you choose yourself. You're done sacrificing your calm just to keep someone else from feeling the consequences of their own behavior. So when they lash out, smile quietly. That's not hate. That's proof you've become unpredictable. That's proof your value is no longer theirs to define. That's proof you've risen above the old version of you who needed to explain your every move. Write this in the comments right now. I don't respond to ego. Let it echo. Let it remind you who you are now. You don't chase validation. You don't entertain drama. You don't soothe what your absence exposed. And we're just getting started. Because what happens after the anger, it's even more revealing. Stay with me. Number 6. They start watching you. When you stop giving them attention, they stop talking and start watching, because silence makes the loudest noise when it comes from someone who used to care. You pulled back. You went quiet. You didn't make a big scene. No final message. No dramatic exit. You just stopped giving what used to flow so easily. And now, they're watching. Not liking your posts, not commenting, not messaging, but watching, closer than ever. You feel it, you know it. It's in the energy, the quiet shift, the sudden spike in their curiosity. They used to scroll past your stories without a second thought. Now they're the first viewer. They used to reply when it benefited them, but now they lurk. They stay silent. Why? Because they can't understand how the attention they once took for granted suddenly went missing, and they need to know why. Here's the truth. When you were always present, always reaching out, always emotionally available, they didn't have to observe. They didn't have to pay attention. They knew you'd show up. They knew you'd answer. They knew you'd fold. But now, you've become unpredictable, and nothing hooks the mind more than unpredictability. You see, people don't watch what they understand. They watch what confuses them, what surprises them, what unsettles them. And when your silence begins to say more than your words ever did, they take notice. Because attention isn't just about what you give, it's about the power they felt in having it. And now, with that power gone, their mind spirals. Who is he talking to now? Why does he look better? Why is he posting that? Who took my place? They're not watching for fun. They're watching for answers. Imagine it like this. You were once the flame they sat beside for warmth. Now you've walked into the cold and lit your own fire elsewhere, and they're on the outside of that light, peeking through the glass, wondering who's standing next to you now. They feel the shift. Even if they'll never admit it, they feel the absence of your gaze like a chill on their neck. And make no mistake, this isn't always about love. It's not always about missing you. Sometimes it's about missing the emotional control they once held. They were used to your reactions, your replies, your investment. Now that all of that is gone, what they're really missing is the version of themselves they saw reflected in your eyes. The one who felt wanted, important, powerful. So now they watch. Not because they're planning to reconnect, but because they need to know if they still have influence. This is where most men fall back into the trap. They see the views, the silent story watchers, the profile visits, and they think, maybe they care again. Maybe I should reach out. No, brother, that's not care, that's curiosity, and curiosity is not connection. Let them watch, let them stare, let them sit in the shadows of your new glow. Because the truth is, when someone has to observe you from a distance, it's not a sign that you're gone. It's a sign that you've become something they no longer have access to. You've elevated beyond the version of yourself that once needed to be seen. And here's what makes it hit harder for them. You're not performing anymore. You're not posting for their reaction. You're not dressing up your life to impress them. You're just being. And that confidence, that stillness, that's what burns. Because people expect you to make noise when you're hurt. They expect a tantrum, a desperate reach, an emotional reaction. But when you go silent and improve instead, when your glow gets louder than your grief, that's what shakes them. They're watching for cracks. They want to know if the silence is real or if it's just a phase. They want to know if they still matter. So they'll keep checking, keep lurking, keep refreshing your page like it's a lifeline. Not because they care deeply, but because your indifference has become their insecurity. This is where you need discipline. Because their watchful silence is bait. It's meant to draw you out, make you question, make you engage. But you can't fall for that. Don't break your growth just to give someone else the closure they never earned. You have to stay focused. Keep leveling up. Keep doing the things you were doing before they ever noticed. Because this journey you're on, it's not about proving a point to them. It's about proving a purpose to yourself. They're watching to see if you'll break. You're walking to make sure you never have to beg again. So let them tune in to the broadcast of your evolution. Let your silence become the story. Let your absence echo through their routine. And when they scroll past your progress, wondering if you still think about them, don't flinch, don't pause, don't doubt. Because the minute you stop moving for their attention is the minute you give away the power you worked so hard to reclaim. Remember this, not everyone watching you deserves a front row seat. Write this in the comments right now. Let them watch. I'm not stopping. Let it be known. You're not here to play old games. You're not here to feed fading memories. You're here to rise, to evolve, to create a life so rooted in self-worth that even when they look back, they won't recognize the person you've become. And believe me, they're not just watching your page, they're watching your peace. And peace, that's the part they can't copy. And what happens when watching no longer gives them answers? That's when it gets real. Stay with me. Number 7, they realize you've changed, and there's no rewind. The version of you they knew is gone, and the one you've become doesn't look back. There's a moment they never expect, a moment that doesn't come with an announcement, a fight, or a final goodbye. It comes in the silence. It comes in your glow. It comes when they look at you from a distance and realize you've changed. Not in the petty way, not in the bitter way, not in the "I'll show them" way. No, you've changed in the way that's permanent, quiet, unreachable. At first, they told themselves this was just a phase, that you were pulling back for attention, that if they stayed silent long enough, you'd return. That the old version of you, the one who over-explained, who over-loved, who over-gave, would eventually come crawling back, ready to resume the dance. But the longer you stayed centered, the quieter you became, the more consistent your peace got. The more they realized something terrifying. You're not pretending, you're not waiting. You've actually changed. And not just changed, you've evolved. You no longer respond the same. You don't carry the same energy. You don't flinch when they post or fold when they reach out. You don't orbit them anymore. You've left their emotional solar system entirely, and now they're standing in the same spot, but you're galaxies away. They scroll through your updates now like they're reading the story of someone they used to know. They try to find fragments of the person they once had emotional control over, the one who used to check in, show up, break down just to be seen. But that version, he's gone, not hidden, gone. What they're feeling now isn't just confusion, it's grief, but not the grief that comes from losing you. The grief that comes from realizing they can never access the version of you who tolerated their inconsistency again. That's what stings. That's what keeps them up. That's what makes them regretful but still silent. You've become someone they can't predict anymore, someone who doesn't beg, doesn't ask, doesn't react, and people don't know what to do with the things they can't control. You used to be emotionally available. Now you're emotionally disciplined. You used to chase peace in others. Now you protect the peace within yourself. You used to give your energy like it was endless. Now it's gated, earned, respected. And they know that even if they tried to come back, it wouldn't work. Not because you're mean, not because you're spiteful, but because they'd be meeting a version of you they're not qualified to love anymore. That's the real shift. That's what lands hardest. It's like trying to enter a house you once had a key to, only to realize the locks have changed, the lights are different, and the person living inside doesn't even answer the door anymore. They still remember the blueprint. But that house, it's no longer theirs to enter. And now, here they are, watching, wondering, whispering to themselves all the what-ifs and should-haves, thinking maybe if they had valued you more, seen you clearly, showed up with more intention, you'd still be there, still reachable, still willing. But that window, it's closed, and this time for good. You see, the final realization that breaks them isn't that you left. It's that they waited too long to realize you were worth staying for. They let their pride keep the door closed. They mistook your silence for weakness, and by the time they opened their eyes, you had already outgrown the version of yourself who once believed their half-love was enough. And I know, my friend, there's still a part of you that remembers how it felt to want them to see you, to chase that moment of recognition, to beg for the version of love they were too distracted to give. But that part of you isn't in control anymore. That version of you was valuable, but this version is priceless. This version no longer needs to be chosen. This version chooses himself. This version doesn't wait for clarity. He creates it, doesn't wait for closure. He becomes it. And that evolution, it's not just powerful, it's permanent. So if you feel them lingering, if you sense their energy circling back, if they reach out with half-formed words, don't forget what you've built in the silence. Don't trade your growth for their confusion. Let them feel the full weight of the change they never thought would come. Because healing isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. And your clarity now, it's louder than any message you could ever send. So here's your reminder. You are not who you were. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself you've outgrown. You don't have to shrink to be understood. You don't have to go back just to be seen. You've become someone new. And no amount of regret from them can unlock a door that leads to a chapter you've already closed. Write this in the comments right now. I've changed. For good. Let them see it. Let yourself feel it. Let the world know that this isn't a performance. It's your new standard. Because when they realize the old access is gone and the new you doesn't look back, that's when the real silence begins. If you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't just another story. This was your reminder, your permission, your push. And if it hit your soul, share it, like it. Send it to someone who needs this wake-up call. Because one by one, we're building a generation of men and women who no longer beg to be seen, but stand tall enough to never be ignored again. You're not alone in this. And the best part? You're just getting started.